what about you, Dave? Have you got a favourite one of yours?
It's hard. It's hard.
One with your
an ABBA one.
Oh, you got an ABBA one?
No, I mean, I think I'll tell that story of the, when we did that CBS, the launch thing for the Arrival album, and I had to pick them up at the airport. And of course, in those days, there was no automatic landing gear with fog. It was fogged in, and we were hours late. And then we flew helicopters into Battersea. And I mean, the nicest bit was I got to sit next to Agneta, which is lovely, because she was so terrified of flying. And she always used to insist we held hands, which I obviously lived with as best I could. And when the time we got there, and by the time we got round and they did their wavy bit to the boat on the Thames with all the music business and all the execs, everybody was so wasted because they'd been drinking for 5 hours while they waited for us that nobody could string a sentence together or do the interview or do anything.
You just don't think of ABBA getting wasted, do you?
No, well, they didn't. No, they were trying to be very sensible and very professional. It was everybody else who'd lost the plot.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, I do have another expense story that just occurred to me. And it wasn't actually me that was involved. It was when we were in Holland and we were doing Hysteria with Mutt. And there was a lot of time. I mean, that album took 3 years. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. Rick lost his arm, and then we had to get rid of Jim Steinman, and then Mutt took over, then Nigel Green took over, and then Mutt again. And there was a lot of time spent hanging around because how Mutt records, everything's very, very intricate. And there were days when people weren't needed in the studio. And Phil Collen, the guitarist, lovely, lovely guy. The reason we chose Whistlelord was because at that time Pyromania had done about 1.5 million in America, but nothing in Europe. I think in Holland it had sold about 300 copies, 300 in total, nothing more. And so nobody knew them, and it was great because there was no real distractions. But there was one time Phil said, I need a new motor. He says, I'm going to go and buy one. Do you want to come with me? He says it's going to be entertaining. So we went to the Porsche depot, and I had at that time I had a 635. There was a company car, and I went across to the hotel. They were living on the lakes in a place called the Waterwolf on the lakes in Lothrecht. And Joe had got a boat, but Phil was kicking his heels. And we drove across to the Porsche dealer in Haarlem, and Phil went in. He had his tatty jeans on and everything. He had a briefcase on a strap around his neck, and he went in, and they had, I can't remember the name of the Porsche, but there was one that it wasn't the 911. It was the one that had the big V8 engine at the front, not at the back. Was it the 9 Series? It was rounded at the back. Do you know which one I mean?
928.
928.
Yeah, the big one, yeah. And we went in there, and he's looking at this car, and they got a silver one there. And he said, and he took it for a test drive. And the guy's he hadn't a clue who he was. And Phil looked very scruffy and had an Iron Maiden T-shirt on and holes in his jeans and trainers on. And the guy was very disparaging, wasn't taking any notes at all. And Phil says, he got it back to the dealership, and he said, yeah, it's nice. He goes, got it in black? And the bloke says, yes, we do have a black one, so it's at the back. And he says, all right, I'll have it. And the chap says, well, do you want to discuss finance? He goes, no, I've got the money here. And he opened his bag, and he says, 56 grand in it. And he tipped 56,000 pounds onto the guy's desk. He'd done his research. He knew how much he was going to ask. He didn't ask for a discount. He just tipped it out on the table. The guy's face. All of a sudden, the coffee came out, the wine came out, and and Phil goes to me. He goes, look at the fuckers all running about. He says, I bought it like I was buying a bag of fucking chips. Look at the fuckers. So we drove the car away from it. Next week, he put the Porsche through a tobacconist's window, wrote the thing off.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant.
Brilliant.
That's what you call making it.
Yeah, don't get rid of it.
Nick, any more thoughts?
John keeps coming up with these great stories, but I mean, Chris, have you got the one sort of dinner party anecdote that people say, go on, tell us that one about whoever? Your greatest hit.
Well, I mentioned it earlier with ABBA Gold. I think when I moved to Virgin, they had just come off. Culture Club had just had Karma Chameleon in the September, and this was in December. And the Victim single had come out, and it went in at number 4. And of course, everyone was really disappointed. And so we're having the meeting on a Tuesday about what we can do for marketing and so on. And I said, well, I'll see if I can get them on Saturday Superstore that Saturday. So I spoke to Jill at the office, and she said, yeah, but we've already got Duran and the Police. And quick as a flash, I said, well, do you want the 3 biggest bands in the world on your show at Culture Club? And she went off to talk to the producer and came back and said, yeah. Now, I'd met Boy George, but at TV shows, and he didn't know who I was. But we turn up at the studio, and John and George had a row. So George locks himself in the dressing room, kicks everyone else out. And, of course, again, it's in this situation of, I can't say they're not going on. They've got to go on. And again, I don't know how I did it, but I persuaded George to come out, and he redid his makeup, and we did the show, and no one on the production team knew a thing about it.
Yeah. It's all behind, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
But there was something that happened last week. Someone on Six Music were playing, they're doing 1981, and they're doing the hits from the year, and they played Spandau Ballet. And I can remember being with them at Top of the Pops, and Depeche Mode were there. And they came up to the band and said, can we have your autograph? And the band, of course, went, yeah, okay. They thought it was a bit odd. But I think we had Top of the Pops scripts, those yellow scripts that they used to give out. And they signed for the Depeche Mode. But guess what they didn't do? They didn't ask Depeche Mode for their autograph. And you could see the band were thinking, oh, we asked for theirs. Why didn't they ask for ours? No, Spandau were just too cool.
I was just relating a Top of the Pop story to someone the other day, that going on Top of the Pops didn't always guarantee the record going up. The notable story was Men at Work, who'd had Down Under, I think was the first hit, forgive me if it was. The second one, Could It Be Now, I think it was. And they were obviously from Australia, and the record company, who I can't even think who it was, they paid first class for them to come over to do Top of the Pops. The only trouble was the singer was boss-eyed.
Colin Hay.
And the rumour was he was so ugly on Top of the Pops that people turned, and the record went down by about 10 places the next week. And it was blamed on the fact that he was so fucking ugly. And that was around the time where there was a competition for the ugliest man in rock. Well, I was working with a flock of Seagulls. Mick the singer came third. Colin Hay came second. But first, by a huge margin, was the drummer from Iron Maiden. Nico, who looked as if he'd just been smashed in the face with a sledgehammer. And indeed, he still does. But that was the poll, and poor Colin Hay came second. So that was the day that didn't work.
I would like to point out that Nico does listen to Rock Tales.
Does he?
Not anymore.
Hi, Nico.